Hello and welcome to this special edition of Your South Florida, Basel, Art Week and beyond. I'm your guest host, Darius V. Daughtry. I'm a writer and director and the founder and executive artistic director of ArtPrevails Project, a performing and literary arts nonprofit with the mission of making art accessible by providing authentic and engaging artistic and cultural experiences. This month, South Florida is all about the visual arts as Art Basel and Miami Art Week sweep the region into an artistic frenzy. Let's jump in with what the art and creative community bring to our bottom line. The nonprofit Americans for the Arts tracks the economic impact of the arts in communities. Its latest report showed that in Miami-Dade, arts and culture generate $2.1 billion in economic activity every year. In Broward, that number is closing in on $400 million. And in the Palm Beaches, it's $335 million. Let's put some context to those numbers.
To understand where the numbers become this large, it's something called a ripple effect. If someone pays $1 to an arts organization for a programming that has gone on and they've attended that, but then that dollar then goes towards someone's salary in the arts organization. It goes to some of it goes to a handler, some of it goes to the PR company, right? So it goes into the operations of that organization. That pays for that. Then that handler, that art handler, takes a fraction of that and spends it on a sandwich at a store around the corner. The PR firm hires somebody with a fraction of that in their firm, and they go out and spend it on something, and it goes on and on and on.
Joining me now to talk about the huge impact of the arts on South Florida, economically and beyond, is Dennis Scholl. Dennis is a familiar face on the South Florida and national art scene, and he played a key role in bringing Art Basel to town over 20 years ago. Dennis has also been a leader in the arts with both the Knight Foundation and Ulite Arts. Welcome. It's great to have you with us, Dennis.
Good to be here.
So tell us, initially, what was the impetus in bringing something like Basel from Switzerland to Miami?
Well, I think 20, 25 years ago, nobody ever thought of Miami as a cultural oasis. We got to be honest. However, in the last 20 years or so, we have gotten the best teaching symphony in America, the best young talent spotting organization in young arts. We have one of the best ballets in America. And so Miami has kind of elevated as a cultural institution. And when the Basel folks came to town over 20 years ago and said, we're thinking about doing a second version of the fair, we knew as a community that this was a chance to hit the mother lode, really. And so we wined them and dined them. And one of the things that happened was the collectors in town came together. The Rubel family, the Bremen family, the De La Cruz family, they all came together to try to convince Art Basel to come here. And when it did, it changed everything.
How hard was it, one, to convince both Basel to come here, but also then for the community to buy in and feel like this is something that we needed to have here?
It was actually harder to get the community to understand what it meant to have the fair here, because there's a natural tendency to think, well, the art fair is coming, somehow my art is going to be a part of it. But it's an international art fair with 200 and something galleries from all over the world, with artists from various places all over the world. So the actual footprint in the beginning of local artists was very limited. So they did what artists always do. They kind of figured out a way to get in the action. And what they did was they would do these other events that were not part of Art Basel in the Miami Beach Convention Center, but big events, big installations. And that is what's become Miami Art Week. You have Art Basel, the fair, which is what everybody flies in for in their private jets and goes to parties and everything. But then you also have all the ancillary events around it with local artists, with people coming in to show films, to do events, things like that. So it has become one wild party that week.
Yeah, so Miami Art Week, I'll tell you, I do a lot around that. I go and see a lot of these amazing installations, spend way too much time, down there. So maybe talk a little bit more about some of those great things that you see happening outside of the convention center.
So one of the things that has happened is that all the museums have upped their game substantially. So this year for Art Basel, the Perez Art Museum has an installation, a big exhibition by one of my favorite artists, Gary Simmons. He works with chalk on big wall drawings, and he talks about the Black experience. And he's an amazing, amazing artist, and we're very lucky to have him here during Art Basel. But that's an example of what everybody does. Everybody kind of gets ready for Art Basel to come to town and elevates their own exhibition program. Because, people are in the convention center a lot when they come to town, but they also move around the city. And that's where we benefit. We benefit from people getting to see Miami, to see Miami Beach. I would say that I think everybody knows that Miami has changed a lot in the last 3 or 4 years since COVID. We've had this huge influx of financial businesses. I would say in some part that is because people would have come down before that, seen Miami for a few days during Art Basel and said, I could live here. And they have, and they've come.
Yeah, a lot of them, a lot of them. So with that being said, I've seen it, the evolution of Miami as an arts city, from the rise of Wynwood, and with Art Basel being here. So maybe beyond just the fair and that week, what's your ideas about how Miami has evolved as an art city?
Well, I think the big thing we're always shooting for is to make sure that Miami is an art city more than those 5 days when the fair is in town. Got to take care of the other 360 days. And there are a number of organizations that have helped do that. Our Miami-Dade County government is one of the largest art funders on a per capita basis of any county government in the country. So they have always stepped up. You couple that with a community that has the Knight Foundation, which has put over $200 million into arts in Miami-Dade County over the last dozen or so years. And then there are other organizations. I happen to have run up until recently an organization called Oolite Arts that you mentioned, and we work with individual artists. Mm-hmm. And we also put money out to individual artists to help keep them going. So there's this great safety net that has been built over the last couple of decades for working artists in our community. That seems great. The only issue recently has been, of course, housing. Housing has become very difficult for everybody, but particularly for artists because they're gig economy people. They work in gigs, so they have time to work on their practice. So there's a lot of discussion about that. Oolite Arts has just decided to give artist housing stipends to artists so that if you become an Oolite resident artist, you get a free studio, but you also get a housing stipend to help fight back against what has happened to rents. So I would have to say that Miami-Dade County is a very welcoming place for artists, and it is a place where we have built up this set of tools as an artist that you can access. Got to do something about giving artists a way to live.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're going to lose them.
So then, to that point, as an artist myself, I know what it was like for me growing up. How do we help shift the idea of what it means to be a working artist, right? So that people can start to think about artists as just part of society, just as a doctor or an engineer or an educator.
Yeah. Well, I think the disconnect is that people love art, but sometimes we forget that it comes from artists. And that's tough. Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult situation to be in. So I think, as you said, we have to begin to treat artists like any other professional in our community, and to acknowledge that without artists, our community would be a much different place. And so you've got to find a way to create housing opportunities for them. You've got to understand that they work differently than other people in terms of, like I said, they'll take gigs versus have a 9-to-5 job. So we've got to continue to fight for artists in our community, because without it, it would be a much sadder place.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You hear that, everybody? Fight for artists. So before we go, what are you looking for? You mentioned the exhibit at PAM. Anything else that you were looking forward to this upcoming season?
Well, Art Basel, Miami Beach, the fair itself at the convention center, it's just a cornucopia of opportunities when it comes to seeing art. You can see art from probably 40 countries. And within the fair, there's always something new. I actually go through the fair every day because I walk this way one day, and then I walk the other way the other day, and this way, I mean, the fair is so big and so massive. And, they do change it overnight. If things are selling really well, things change. So I have to confess that I spend most of my time at the art fair itself. The other two fairs that I really enjoy going to are called Untitled, and that's right on the beach on 12th Street and just off of Ocean Drive. There's a big tent right on the beach. They build it. And then a really young fair where you see artists that someday will be in the main fair is one called Nada, which is a fair that's on 14th Street at the city of Miami. It's across the bay. Both of those are really fun, really young, and you can find something you can afford. Art comes at all levels and all prices, and so in those fairs, it's pretty easy to find something really cool.
Dennis, thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully I'll see you down at the fair.
We'll see you down there, and come by and see the collection. We'd love to have you.
I sure will. We checked in with a couple of local curators for their strategy to tackling the frenzy and traffic of Art Week. Here's Commissioner Deja Carrington and Art Scene 365's Daughtry Tapia for some thoughts on planning your best Art Week experience.
I love to think about it as Miami Art Week more than Basel, even though, Basel is so important. But I like to think of how great an opportunity it is for our local artists and for our local organizations to be seen by many people from around the world. My name is Daughtry Tapia, and I'm the founder and curator for Art Scene 365. Pretty much all the institutions and local venues will have an offering during Miami Art Week, and they are great choices for the public, for the locals, to actually be part of the Miami Art Week without necessarily probably incurring into the expenses of the art fairs or the traffic, and at the same time have the opportunity to be part of the excitement. The museums, for example, the Perez Art Museum always has new shows, new offerings, and it's a great venue for people who wants to go and be part of it without being in the mainland, without necessarily going to Miami Beach. Also, at Locus Projects, a local artist, Cornelius Tulo, is going to have an installation, and I'm looking forward. Cornelius has had a great year. He has shows in New York, have had some installations over here, but I'm really looking forward to what he's going to do at Locus, because this is what Locus Projects is known for, like giving artists an opportunity to really stretch themselves, stretch their practice, and create something new. I am very excited for a program that the City of Miami Beach put together called No Vacancy, where basically they do an open call and commission 12 artists to do installations at local hotels. And then this is open to the public, completely free, and it gives the artists an opportunity to do an installation, to show their work.
My name is Deja Carrington, and I am the co-founder and executive director of Commissioner. Some of the things that I'm most excited about is this artwork commission that we're doing with Giovanna Gonzalez. We commissioned Giovanna in season 3 of Commissioner to do a performance and installation, and she'll be bringing that back in an all-new iteration called Play Lay A Act 6 at Untitled Art Fair, but it's going to be free and open to the public. So imagine performance on the sands of Miami Beach that really explore movement as a political act. Another initiative I'm very excited about is what's happening over at the historic Hampton House. I mean, this is one of the gems of Miami, the last hotel of the Green Book, and I think more recently known for being featured in the film One Night in Miami, where Sam Cooke and Muhammad Ali and Malcolm X come together to have that monumental conversation. But they're going to be hosting range of programming, including an exhibition with a collection of Beth DeWitty. They're going to be featuring a sculpture by Reginald O'Neill, as well as an exhibition by Miami's own Jared McGriff. Some of the ways in which I like to plan my week is geographically, because traffic is real. So first of all, I decide whether it's a day to be in Miami Beach or it's a day to be on the mainland. The other thing that I like to do is really just focus on the artists I know. And then I think about what are some of the events or some of the exhibitions I can see that I won't see any other time of year. Because this is a special time to be able to catch a pop-up show or something more ephemeral. So I like to try and do something very different. I ask myself, is it weird enough? Is it interesting enough? Am I gonna like the vibe? And that's how I do it. I also like to stick to maybe only 2 to 3 things a day. I know there's this impetus to want to have it all, but sometimes you just need to be present with the work. And so I try and take that pressure off and really just kind of align with my values and step into the places I want to be.
There is also a lot of people and families and that live on the west side of the county that sometimes have a harder time reaching or accessing the cultural offerings. So that's why it's so important also to balance a little bit the offerings towards the west side of the county. Of course, on that side we have the Frost Art Museum, which is a jewel of a museum, and the Doral Contemporary Art Museum.
In terms of navigating the mainland, there's just so much going on between Miami-based galleries. So my trick is always to just input it in a map. So I start with the Museum of Contemporary Art in North Miami, which is going to be showing an incredible exhibition with Detroit-based artist Jamia Richards, and then work my way down south. And from there, you can go to the galleries in Little Haiti, maybe have a stopover at the historic Hampton House, pass by the Rubel collection, come all the way back up for Primary and Spinello projects, gradually end at New Art Dealers Art Fair. The most important thing about Art Week is to just be really curious and to remember that you belong in any space that you enter in. So ask the questions, dive into the work, stay present, try and meet the artist if you can. I think at best you come away from Art Week with new relationships, with new topics that you want to look further into, maybe with a travel plan to go visit the artists in a studio, wherever they may live. I think it's a time to build on friendship. It's a time to immerse yourself in art, and also a time to enjoy Miami.
Joining us to talk more about an event designed to get you off the beach and exploring alternative arts venues, Dr. Willie Logan, President and CEO of 10 North Group, and Babakar Mbao, Curator of the City of Opa-locka's Art of Transformation Installations and Street Party. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
For having us.
Absolutely. We have a lot to go over here because you have an event during the week, and I also want to talk about a lot of things that are happening in the city. So, Dr. Logan, first for you, what is your vision for the city of Opa-locka when it comes to the arts, and why is the city so dear to you?
Well, I think the vision for the city of Opa-locka is similar to the vision of any city or any neighborhood, and that is you want a community that has access to the best of everything in life. And so whether it's food, whether it's art, whether it's education, recreational activities, etc., we believe that art is transformative. And art not only tells stories, but it reminds us of times of the past, but it also lays out a framework for the future. And it gives us an opportunity to share the experiences of people from various walks of life. And it also brings people together. And it serves, quite frankly, as a catalyst for interaction and for understanding.
And so with that, how have you seen that impact the cities thus far?
In a very positive way. I think when you mention the word Opa-locka now, people don't first think of something negative. They think of a city that has unique architecture, a city that's growing, a city where people want to come visit. And we believe that very soon people want to live there from all walks of life, and not just folks who see it as a second choice community. And so we're very excited that bringing art as a way of attracting folks, a way of giving folks understanding, and a way of entertaining people and bringing people from different walks of life together is very, very important for any community in any neighborhood to prosper and for people to have understanding and empathy for each other.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. And so Dr. Logan mentioned the art of transformation, and as you know, so Babacar, if you can tell us a little bit, I know I've visited and I've been around it, so I know that the whole exhibit, the whole time that you all have there is around the African art and the full African diaspora. So maybe if you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I think that both the series of exhibitions and the programs and their relationship to the neighborhood, as Dr. Logan was just mentioning, is important. This year is very unique in the sense that it is a gathering of 4 different exhibitions within the campus. So titled the Global Africa Global, where the curatorial team, which is overseeing these exhibitions, is composed of a variety of people, not only from the African diaspora, but also of European descent, into exploring the global nature of black culture through exhibition, through a garden of sculpture with 6.5 feet sculptures from Africa and the Caribbean, and to bring these curators from around the world, black curators, to Opalaka. For example, we have Tumolo Mosaka, who was the curator of the Biennale of Johannesburg, Professor Yakuba Konate, who is the chair of the Department of Art History at the University of Abidjan, and who was also the curator of the Ivory Coast Pavilion at the last Venice Biennale. Philip Thomas is from the Edna Miley School of Art. Abdoulaye Konate is a major African contemporary artist who is also a curator, who is going to curate. So each of these curators works on a particular theme. Tumelo Mosaka is going to look at the fragmentation of identity through migration. And a particular element in this is the invited country. So last year, for example, we were pleased to see we invited Haiti. So this year, we are exploring Puerto Rico. And these are separate, unique pavilion in which the full presentation of that country we invited could be explored with curators from that country. Abdel Ramos is from the University of Madrid, but Puerto Rican, who will be doing the exhibition on Puerto Rico, the experience of both island and diaspora, those dynamics. So in terms of themes, in terms of the scholarship that was brought into this from around the African diaspora, provide us with an opportunity to present a unique perspective on African and African diaspora people, not only from the US and Africa, but from a global perspective. So for example, for the unveiling of this magnificent sculpture made in Cuba, conceived in Cuba, which is almost a ton in bronze, which is Yamaja, the goddess of the sea, but in a contemporary articulation. So there are so many layers in this year, Art of Transformation, which perhaps for the first time, we are able now to bring all the components of the global Africa into one campus, into 4 sites, but walkable across each other.
That sounds amazing. Like you just talking about it has me hyped to go and be a part of it.
It is.
Well, quickly, maybe you mentioned it being the global Africa, and maybe talk about either one of you. Why is it important to have that not only in Opalaka, but like during this week of Art Basel, when this is an international festival? Why is it important to have that happening at this moment?
It's important that it's happening in Opalaka because Opalaka is a majority African American community. It's located off the beat of where most of the artists or the cultural activities in Miami-Dade County take place. And we think that every neighborhood, every community, every residence need within walking distance or a short ride access to the type of programming, in other words, to engage with these artists, to understand their stories, the type of entertainment, so whether it's dance, spoken word, music, and the visual art, whether it's sculptures or paintings, etc., should have access to it, and they should have access to it within their neighborhoods. We also recognize that once you bring culture and art and entertainment, property values, the interests of people living there, the interests of people having businesses and working there, is multiplied by many times, and that's evident, and we can just see that throughout Miami-Dade County, if not throughout the world. Yeah. I think also what makes us unique is that the increase in property value, the increase in wealth, the increase in income opportunities once a community takes off is important to the residents that are there. And so our goal through this art of transformation is to transform the community by adding additional people, additional activities, additional services, additional programming, but not displacing the people who are currently there.
Which is, I think, is always important, right? Because as those property values, increase, what happens to the people that live there? We
think that scholars, young kids, young artists, aspiring artists, entrepreneurs alike should have access to these things, and so all of our programming is free. We always insist or require or invite the artists to be in, to do, to interact with the community. When Art Basel leaves, our art stays up, for a couple more months, because we're not doing it just for international crowd or art buyers. We're doing it for the people who are here. And then we share it with the folks who are visiting. Right. And so we're very excited. We believe that we have the most important collection of African and African diaspora art, contemporary art, or art. And we go back and forth with what's contemporary because, as you know, everything was contemporary at its time.
Absolutely.
And so we think our collection is significantly important, not only to this community, but to the United States and Americas in general, because of the fact that it is so global in nature and it's so representative of the diaspora that we are excited. And Babacar and I, Dr. Mbao, and I, quite frankly, are the elders. We reach out and we work with the curators, we work with the artists, we work with the program folks, we serve as advisors. I say he's our griot. Often folks refer to me as the griot in the sense that we're there to serve as a foundation, support, inspiration, and to open doors and provide access to those who will be the next leaders within our community. And so whether it's the managers of a site, or whether it's the curator, whether it's the artist, or whether it's the person who's building the frames, or the person who's actually setting things up, or whatever the case may be, working behind the scene, we think it's important that we empower folks in our community in this space, in this industry, and that's really the role that the two of us play.
Dr. Mbao, Dr. Logan, thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you all down at the Art of Transformation.
Thank you for having us.
For more on the Art of Transformation and this year's Miami Art Week, follow us on Facebook at Your South FL. I'm Darius V. Daughtry. Thanks for watching.